All right, part two, let's go. So, in our last episode, we were talking about quantum mechanics, things in science, and I spoke about how ancient cultures all over the world actually knew about this before modern science. And just so people wouldn't think I'm stuffed in the head, I showed this thing over here where the coordinates of the Great Pyramid is the exact same number as the speed of light, just to open people's mind. But hold on here, something's odd. And I was hoping by showing them that, be more open-minded to the things that were to come. And then I went on to speak about how, ancient cultures all over the world had some sort of concept of a auric field, right? And this isn't a strange idea that's being debunked. In fact, on the contrary, it's been proven by modern science, just named something else. We know it as the magnetic field, and your heart produces a magnetic field. I'll show you in a few minutes, an invisible energetic field. Okay, opening these documents over here. It's an invisible energetic field that's around you, and it pretty much, there's an image over here, fits the description of an aura, right? So we have the coordinates of the pyramids being the speed of light, right? So we're going to get a little bit more into this topic. We're going to explain how the ancient Egyptians actually knew about the atom and this thing known as atomism, right? How they knew about the photon and some concepts that sound a lot like quantum mechanics. So in our first video, I described how I was on Facebook and I got into this conversation with someone, and it was about this topic. He asked me to send some evidence, so I did, and I thought, well, okay, since I've written this, let's do a video on it. So I'm going to go further and let's get into the atom. Let's discuss that. So my other heading, and this is all pasted from our conversation, these are things I said, the idea of the photon. Okay, now let me just explain what a photon is. You see, light, basically the smallest unit of light is known as a photon, and photon can be a particle or a wave. Just as it says, the idea of the photon, comma, atom as well, can be tracked to the Egyptian god Atum, right? And you're going to see in a few moments, it actually links to this speed of, what is it? This speed of light thing that is quite cool, right? So over here it says, the ancients knew that knew about the atom before modern science. Not only that, but they also understood the photon of quantum mechanics, that the photon has no charge. It is the smallest unit of matter. Yes, all matter comes from units of light. Show you in a few moments, and I will give sources for this. Remember, the Bible says, let there be light, right? In the beginning, that was the most fundamental thing. And by the way, we all admit light. We just don't admit light that we can see. If you're in a pitch black room, pitch black, you're actually emitting infrared light, and you also have a magnetic field around you. If you're using a non-science term, we call it an auric field. And yeah, you can't physically see it, but it's light. Electromagnetism is light. You can actually go search this. So the photon emerges from chaos. Chaos is randomness. In other words, superposition. They believed before anything existed, there was something known as noon, which was the sea of random potential in which all things came from. So that's a mouthful. So let's get into this and explain. Okay, so this is a point that I wish, oh yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, this is a point I wish I could voice note because I was typing this at the time. I believe it will help for the flow of information. So there is something known as atomism, right? And atomism is a philosophy, and it is originally, if you track it back, based off the Egyptian god Atum. So let's type atomism and let's see what that is. And you notice it sounds a lot like our word atom. What is the atom? Well, according to mainstream science, atom is supposed to be one of the smallest fundamental building blocks to matter. There are these little I don't know, they've got a nucleus and these little things that swarm around them and they form these chemical bonds. Like atoms come together and they connect and they form all these little structures. One of the smallest bits of matter. Well, atomism is a natural philosophy proposing that the physical universe is composed of fundamental, indivisible components known as atoms. Now, this isn't the impressive part, right? I suppose somebody could have guessed this, that, hey, do you think all matter has a smallest unit that you can't divide smaller than? Anyone could have figured that out. I'm just, explaining the background as to what atomism is. What's interesting is coming further down the line. So yeah, there was this concept that there must be the smallest unit of matter. You can't go any smaller than that, right? Imagine I have a plank. I cut the plank in half. Oh, man, I cut a plank in half. I've got a plank half the length. So I've got a meter. I've got half a meter. Cut it in half again. I've got a quarter of a meter. I keep cutting it, cutting it, cutting it. Eventually, it gets microscopic. I get a very fine knife. Cut it, cut it, cut it. The idea goes you'll eventually get to a part in which you cannot break down. Okay, so I say here, this is a boy. Okay, good. Atomism is the ancient philosophy that there is smallest unit of matter. It is not impressive by that point alone, but rather its prediction of the photon in quantum mechanics. Let me start with this point. Atomism is named after the Egyptian god. Okay, to arise, I'm going to say the Egyptian god that arose from the Sea of Chaos. Now, in inverted commas, I give some background as to what the Sea of Chaos is. So, in their mythology, they believed in this god named Atum. Actually, so let's just show you who Atum was, and we'll link it together in a few moments. Atum was an Egyptian god. Okay, you notice it sounds a lot like atom. You'll see there are some other links in a few moments. So atom, okay, sometimes referred to as Atem. Atem is a primordial god, is one of the first gods. It makes sense, right? Because an atom is the fundamental building block for all matter. So, okay, so is the primordial god, primordial ancient in the Egyptian mythology from whom all else arose, because everything's made out of atom. He created himself, okay, and is the father of Shu and Tefnut. Okay, so, and then I go on here to say, so this Atum arose from chaos. He arose from nothing. He basically didn't really have a creator, and this chaos means randomness. Well, you might know in quantum mechanics, objects are in a state of randomness, but we name this randomness superposition. We give it under a different name. An electron, if you go watch the first video, can be multiple places at once. A photon, but more of it in the more likely places. So yeah, chaos means randomness, quantum superposition, we'll explain later. Notice how atomism, the philosophy, and the god Atum are named, I say here named after the atom, but actually the atom is named after them. It's typo over there. So let's go to atomism. Okay, there I give a link, and then I give another link for the reader of the Egyptian god Atum. Then I go on to say, now I get to some important points, so pay attention. Although we named the atom under the actual atom spoken about by both atomists and the god Atum, you see, the atomists based this off the Egyptian god Atum. And although the atom was named named after them, after that philosophy that there's the smallest unit of matter, they were wrong, because it wasn't the smallest unit of matter. The atom that mainstream scientists discovered, if I were to type here atom, as we know today, can be broken into smaller components. So it's not the real atom, but it's too late. We've already named it the atom. An atom can be broken into electrons, protons, neutrons, even further quarks. So even though we call this the atom and that's the smallest piece of matter, that's not really true. The proper philosophy of atomism says you cannot break it down further. Okay, so let's read a little bit further. So I say here, okay, although we named the atom under the actual atom spoken about by both the atomists and the god Atum of the Egyptian Heliopolis philosophy, it was an error on the scientists' part, for they were wrong. They had not discovered the smallest unit of matter. Actually, the thing they called the atom can be broken down into electrons, protons, as we've said before. So then I go on to say, also, the ancient Egyptian esoteric schools would also disagree with those old scientists, the previous scientists, as they believed, the Egyptians believed that the atom was actually light itself. No worries, I'll fact check this further down, right? So mainstream science has corrected their mistake and now recognize the photon as the smallest block, I should say smallest building block to matter. Apologies, a photon is not matter, but it makes matter. Because I'll tell you why. Photon is light. A photon is the smallest bit, the smallest thing you can get, has no charge, but a photon can, I'm going to read here, a photon has no mass, but it can split into an electron-positron pair, which has mass. Okay, and those electrons and positrons, as you know, are the fundamental building blocks to build these larger things that we falsely call atoms, that are not actually, they don't fit the original definition of what an atom is meant to be. You would know that the inside of the atom, the modern version of an atom that we discovered, has got a positive charge in the middle. Now, that positive charge, if you go down smaller and smaller, is actually ultimately from positrons, right? Those quarks and like protons and stuff. Proton, not to be confused with a photon. A proton is a unit of matter, but yeah, those everything in the middle gets a positive charge, and it gets that positive charge from the positrons. Everything on the outside is a negative charge, and it gets that from its electrons. So can an okay, so let's show you, can an atom split into a positron and electron pair. See, pair production, you can read that over there. Pair production is the creation of a subatomic particle and its antiparticle, because they're like opposites from a neutral boson. Examples include, okay, pair production. Okay, there are two gamma photons from an electric. Where are we going? Research have detected rare instances of photons splitting in two. No. Let me press pause, and here's a video that explains it quite well. But I mean, if you do some researching on the internet, you can see it.
But of opposite charge, it constitutes the antiparticle of an electron.
So yeah, that's something you can look into. But also, when atoms absorb light, the electrons in those atoms will jump to higher orbits. So, you know, light actually plays quite a crucial role in chemical reactions and the formation of matter. It can cause, as here, when an electron loses energy and drops to a lower orbit, it emits a light photon. Heat light can make an electron jump to a higher orbit and can cause chemical reactions, right? And ultimately, everything is made up of light. You know, particles emit radiation, and they emit radiation in the form of light. When an object absorbs light, you know, it will also gain more mass if it gets enough light. So, okay, now let's go back to the other side of the fence, to the ancient Egyptians. Atum was also known as Atum Re. Okay, well, who is Re? Well, Re is the Egyptian sun god. And what is the sun? Well, the sun is light. And I just want to show you something actually quite cool here. Well, actually, let's say, who was Re? Let's just find out who was Re. Re was one of the most important gods worshipped in Egypt, he was the sun god. You also think of him as the light god. And this is interesting because I'm going to might refer back to this a couple of times, but remember that, the coordinates of I'm going to have to type in the social coordinates of the Great Pyramids is also the speed of light, right? So coordinates of the Great Pyramids is the speed of light, and their most important god is Ra, which is the sun god. And now in this article over here, I'm going to say, okay, so I say Atum was also known as Atum Re, right? So they would merge those two concepts on the same person, Atum Re, right? Let's type that, because Re was the sun god. You see over here, Ra, under Ra, it says Atum and Atum Re. You see, Atum Re was another composite deity formed from the two, right? So they are like one and the same. They're both different aspects of the same being. So I say here, okay, who's Ra? And as I said, Ra's the sun god. He brings light to the world. Where do photons come from? Well, the sun, of course, hence the son of God is appropriately named Ray, because Ra is where we get our word Ray. The son, or the son of God. Remember, Christ was the son of God, but also if you read Egyptian mythology, Horus is also another sun god. He is the son of God. What are the northern coordinates of the pyramid? Well, they are the same numbers as speed of light, as we've spoken about, speed of light in a vacuum. So then I explained that. And then I basically said to that person on Facebook, do you believe in 6-digit coincidences and both topics relating to light? A lot of people get surprised when they see this because they think they should have seen this in some sort of encyclopedia or book. And so why haven't I heard about this before? And that is a very good question. I'll answer that in another video because that will open another massive can of worms and make this video too long. Okay, then so let's address maybe a counter argument or what some skeptics might say. So I'm bringing up the coordinate of the Great Pyramids. I'm saying, look here, it's the same as the speed of light, and the chances of this happening is 1 in a million, as I've proven in the first video, right? Through probability maths. So somebody might say, oh, there's this very funny video on YouTube. Gosh, this guy's like, Chris, he's like, guys, do you honestly think the ancient Egyptians used our modern metric system? That is insane, right? So I'm going to just address that point right here. So here under the other heading, and also what I wrote on the Facebook post, how would the Egyptians know the metric system and degrees, right? Okay, so it goes, okay, now let's address the potential counter argument. And we have a skeptical bloke saying, you're crazy, Andrea. Are you actually telling me that the pyramid builders knew the metric system? And, degrees in a circle. And then me with the straightest of faces. Yes. It sounds weird at first because most people believe falsely that we made up the metric system from thin air. But this is false. Okay? It was designed to intersect, to put a 2 there. Okay, I put 2 as in I go to the shops. Oh yeah, it was designed, I wrote this very quickly, by the way. It was designed to intersect two things in nature in order to be convenient for measurement. Since nature is more universal, anyone in history could have figured out the same concepts. And I'm going to give sources. The meter is based on both the speed of light in a vacuum, how cool is that, as well as a quarter circumference of the Earth. Okay, let's go further. Now, let's fact check these 2 points. Go to the link below and look under the heading that says speed of light definition. Okay, so what link do we have over here? So I'll get that link just to show you. See, so Wikipedia page, you can compare it to other encyclopedias. Okay, I must have put a gap or something. Okay, and then let's type light. If you want, yeah, sometimes just press Control F, it takes you exactly to where you want to be in the article. And here it says, to further reduce uncertainty, the 17th CGP, let me just skip to the point that says it. Let's see. Now, let me read the whole thing. CGPM in 1983 replaced the definition of the meter with its current definition, thus fixing the length of the meter in terms of seconds and the speed of light. Well, that's cool. And then there's another little point. So let's say circumference of the Earth. I'm going to press Control F to get exactly to where I need to be. The meter was originally defined in 1791 by French National Assembly as 1/10 millionth of the distance from the equator to the North Pole along a great circle. So the Earth's polar circumference is approximately 40,000 kilometers. And if you actually go into Google and you actually search the Earth's circumference, you'll find it almost rounds off perfectly. It doesn't exactly, because it needs to, the meter was designed to intersect two values, the speed of light and a quarter of the Earth's circumference. And they purposely did it so it would be convenient when measuring. But you'll find it almost rounds off. So let's say Earth's circumference. Okay, there you go. And it's off by 75 kilometers, right? So yeah, the Egyptians didn't have the metric system. We named it that today, but they could have developed something. They developed something very similar because the metric system is based off nature. The speed of light is universal, or as we think it's universal. I don't know if beyond the event horizon, if laws of physics work differently, but they're pretty universal. So no, yeah. And then let me pause the recording. Let me just show you something else I found quite interesting. Come on, Zoom. It's messing with me. There's the pause. Man, I tried to find that recording. I couldn't locate it. I want to show you, it was quite amusing. There's this guy on the internet doing a short saying, I've seen people talk about this on the internet, and come on, guys, use your common sense. You're crazy. I mean, are you honestly saying that the Egyptians used the metric system? It was one of these debunked videos, but the ones where they like get angry and scream at the camera and say, oh man, I'm done. I can't believe people are so stupid to believe this. Yeah. But anyways, back to what I was reading. So let's go into. Okay, so let's go further. So we've spoken about, yes, the Egyptians could have easily come to something similar to the meter because the meter is based off nature. But what about degrees in a circle? Didn't we make that up at some time, like some modern time? We just decided that there's 360 degrees in a circle, right? I mean, we could have said there were 10 degrees in a circle or 4 degrees in a circle, right? Because remember, the coordinates, when we're working with coordinates, like the coordinates of the Great Pyramids, it's measured in degrees, right? So, and our degrees work in 360. So the question is, well, isn't that a modern concept? I mean, can't there be two degrees even in a circle, like radians, different systems? So I'm going to read this. Okay. What about degrees in a circle? Well, I do not even need to give a source. Just Google the sexagesimal system. Okay, so this is actually quite cool. Actually, our 360 degrees in a circle has been there ever since ancient times and close to the times of the Egyptians, although I believe the building of the Great Pyramids was long before that. Story for another day, though, another rabbit hole. But yeah, we've had the 360 degrees for a long time, and actually, so the sexagesimal system was a Babylonian number system far superior to ours. That was base 60 actually, and it's also where we get our 360 and stuff like that. And I'll show you why it was superior, especially for things like trigonometry and stuff like that. Actually, when you are doing maths in school and they make you divide stuff, and then okay, that's good. I mean, that one works, and then you do something else. But at like some point, you get this very long rounding off error, and that thing kind of goes on forever. It's 0.333333. Isn't that annoying? You get the number that will give you the least of that is a base 60 number system, not a base 10. Actually, And in that way, the Babylonian system was more superior. And just to show you, if I have 360 over here, and we divide that by 2, we don't have any rounding off errors, and you can keep going. You can actually experiment this in your own time. 360 divided by 3. It's just the prime numbers that don't fit in, but you go 360 divided by 4. And you also notice that these numbers are very significant. Also, a little fun fact, with this base 60, all the individual digits are always going to add to 9. So let's say we divide by 8, we have 45. 4 plus 5 equals what? 9, right? 360 degrees in a circle. 6 plus 3 equals 9. Okay, half a circle, 180 degrees. 1 plus 8 equals 9. So this was another reason why the Babylonian sexagesimal system was so convenient. It was very great for seeing if you made a mistake, because there's many, subsections of a circle and stuff like that, where if it doesn't add to 9, you've done something wrong. And honestly, today, and mainstream science will tell you this, actually, if we used sexagesimal for, spacecrafts and stuff like that, and trigonometry, you get a lot more rounding off errors, and it's just a lot more useful. And, they've even spoken about actually using it for those purposes. Let's go into Google. Show you this sort of thing. See, it's actually funny enough. I said it was a base 60 system. Not exactly true. It's both base 60 and base 10. That's why it's so cool. Look at how this number system works. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. But you'll also see it goes to like 59 as the last digit, and then 60 it will repeat again. So it can be either, which is quite cool. So what I say over here is, in other words, you cut a long story short, yes, the ancient Egyptians would have had a 360 in the circle, because it's based off nature. Again, 60 is the most convenient number to not have rounding off errors. It's a great, base 60 is actually awesome. So let's read over here. What about degrees in a circle? Well, I do not even need to give the source, just Google sexagesimal. Now, a side note, and maybe this is a video for one day if I ever have the time. So a side note is that Jezebel sounds like Jezebel in the Bible, and I've done some research into this. It's not a coincidence. I can now go on to say there is much to say on this, but remember the whole whore of Babylon was linked to 666. Okay, now by the way, 666, if you add that up in numerology, 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18, and 1 plus 8 equals 9. Again, we are following that same number pattern. You'll find this consistent throughout all sorts of religions and all sorts of stuff. You see that 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 18, and it's very easy to tell 1 plus 8 equals 9. And then remember the 144,000 in the Bible? Well, that also adds up to 9. 1 plus 4 plus, whoops, I'll still have the 666 now. Let's go 1 plus 4 plus 4. And what does that give us? That gives us a 9. So, yeah, actually goes back. So, Revelations, you can kind of get an idea as who was being referred to when it's talking about the whore of Babylon that rides the beast. Remember, Jezebel used to manipulate Ahab. So I say there is much to say. You remember 666? Well, sexagesimal is a base 60 system. You can remember it by saying, oh, that's sexy Jezebel. So if you want to remember the name sexagesimal, just say sexy Jezebel, and then say sexagesimal, and there you can remember. Okay. In fact, there is evidence the Babylonians paved the foundations to trigonometry before Pythagoras. See this link. So this is quite cool. Mainstream news article. I mean, you can also search other, just do a main search on YouTube. But I just want to show you over here. There's a stone that was found. There was different angles of trigonometric angles. This is quite cool, right? And you could say this is actually the foundation to trigonometry. So pretty awesome. Okay. And then I say, man, I lost my place. There we go. So say, okay, back to the atom that Egyptians knew about. The god Atom Ray, the atom and the ray of light. So the god Atom Ray, but firstly, remember the smallest unit of matter is light itself. Remember in the Bible, God made the world of light, and Jesus said to be the light of the world. And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but the earth was without form and void. A little clue, I'll talk about it later. The world was in a superposition, but yeah, it says the world was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. Then the Spirit of God hovered amongst the face of the waters and said, "Let there be light," and there was light, right? So, yeah, the god Atom Ray has no gender. In the occult, opposites were described in terms of males and females. Source below in the line, which says everything consists of gendered opposites. So let's go check this out, right? Get this link over here. Okay. Let me just pause. Okay, there we go. I've got the phrase. So it's talking about the Kabbalion, talking about Hermetic philosophy, but you could even look at other traditions from Egypt to the occult esotericism. I mean, like, yeah, so it says, well, it shares with ancient medieval Hermetic texts number of traits such as philosophical mentalism, the concept of as above, so below, and the idea that everything consists of gendered polar opposites. So, the ancients were more poetic in the way that they would describe things, but they would still describe the same stuff. Gender was used to talk about opposites, like you get the positive pole on a battery and negative pole, or there's a lot of pressure in a gas canister and the outside has low pressure. Now remember, when a male and a female come together, they have a child, right? They can't have a child by two males or two females. Well, it's the same in physics, basically. I mean, if a gas canister has a lot of pressure, but the room has the same pressure, it doesn't matter how much pressure is in the gas canister, when you open it, no air, nothing's going to come out. You're not going to hear shh. And the reason for that is because there's no pressure difference, right? There needs to be a pressure difference, meaning the canister needs to have a lot of pressure and the outside needs to have low pressure. We also work this in the opposite. Maybe there's little pressure inside the canister, but the outside wall has a lot of pressure. When you open that canister, air is going to fly in, right? Same with the battery, right? The one side is acidic and basically has a positive charge, and the other side is alkaline and has an electrical charge. Remember, there is a difference between conventional current and the other one. Okay, cool. I'm getting tired, but I actually want to finish this and actually get all this done tonight. So okay, so there's a Wikipedia link. Okay, Atom, who was the atom? Atom, although depicted as male, had no gender. Other times he was referred to as being both male or female. Well, a photon has no charge. Now remember, the reason I mentioned charge is because remember the ancients used gender to describe opposites, and matter has charge. We can have things of positive charge and a negative charge. So you can think of the positive charge as male and the negative charge is female. So anyways, a photon has no charge. It is neutral. So a photon has no gender. Think about it. If it has no charge, it's not male or female. It's not positive or negative, right? Remember, scientists admit to naming the atom. So I'm just reminding people here incorrectly, and what is actually meant to be the true atom based off atomism is the photon, not the atom as we know it today, right? And the Egyptians got it right. They said the smallest unit of matter is light. The smallest unit of matter is Atom Ray. Okay, Ray, sun god. Okay, so the story goes that Atom's left hand met his right hand, and well, apparently YouTube is quite harsh on censorship. I haven't posted in a while, so I would read this word out loud. Apparently his left hand meets his right hand, he gets jiggy with it, and he has a child. That's how the story goes. And then, so yeah, he copulates with his own nature, and boom, he gives birth to children that do have gender. So he had children of gender, right? I say, by the way, this doesn't state my views on LGBTQ and all this sort of stuff. That's a different story. These are forces of nature, right? So Atom's children had gender. Remember, a photon splits into a electron-positron pair. So a photon of no charge, or as the Egyptians would say, no gender, can split into a positron and an electron. I mean, go search Feynman diagrams actually of, where a photon can actually split into a positron and an electron. So here I have a source. I have a source describing that Atum had no gender. Now, Atum was depicted usually as a male, and he was referred to as he. But if you actually read the story, as I'm about to show, even though he was a he had both male and female qualities, or you could say he was neither. They just called him he. That was the representation he took. So I'm going to open this link over here. Sure, we're on 37 minutes. Let me see if I can keep this within good time. Okay, and so I've pasted this link over here. It's about Atum, and I'm looking for. So I say if you on Windows, just basically say search this phrase up. So I'm actually gonna search this phrase up to get exactly to the part of the article that I want to be at. And here it says, give the gods relationship with community and completion, it is perhaps unsurprising that he was single-handedly able to generate the cosmos as he was understood to transcend the specificities. Oh my God, I'm getting tired. Specifics, I'm going to say specifics of gender and sexuality. Despite this, the hand of Atum with which he performed his creative act came to be seen as an embodiment of the female component of the creative principle, and thus came to be aligned with, okay, I believe this might be referring to, not Isis, it's a minor deity, okay, Isis, or anyways, or Hathor, the Egyptian fertility goddess, okay. And I want to give another source as well, but from a translation of the original Egyptian text. So, yes, Atum went under different names, right? Throughout times and ages, the names can slightly differ. Here is a translation of a creation story where he's actually named, I don't know how to pronounce this, Neberchur. I've always just read this. Was it Neberchur, I believe? But anyways, I'm going to give you that source over there. Now, it's a tomb also because this being is giving birth to Shu and Tefnut. And Shu and Tefnut, search any encyclopedia, is Atum's children. So we know we're just looking at another name of Atum, or the atom. Okay, so the atom or the photon. Oh, and if you want to look in Greek mythology, it's phaeton. So here is a great site, sacredtext.com. You can also look at other platforms that translate, maybe a .edu site. But I'm going to actually search this specific phrase to get exactly to where I want to be in an article. If you're on a site, you don't want to read the whole thing, you want to look for something specific, press Control and F on a Windows computer, Command and F on a Mac, and just type what you're looking for. And this is it. So he says, shall I read a bit before? Created things from which arose from what they brought forth. Okay, so it says here, I had union with my closed hand, and I embraced my shadow as a wife, and I poured my seed into my mouth. Sorry if it's a bit graphic. And I sent forth from myself issue in the form of the gods Shu and Tefnut. So he had union with his shadow, while his shadow is himself. But you see the thing of polarity, right? It's using gender to be a metaphor for the polarities and the opposites of nature. So your shadow is you, but like it's just another aspect of you, right? It's almost like your opposite, right? So he embraced his shadow as his wife and boom, gave birth to these two children, and the two children had gender. So if my father knew my eye, okay, cool. So let's go forward. So say lastly, the wiki page says Atom was self-begotten. Well, that makes sense. The photon, you can't get any more smaller than a photon, just arised, I suppose, at the time of the Big Bang. There's an explosion of light. So say lastly, this wiki page says Atom was self-begotten. This makes sense because there is nothing smaller which makes a photon. Maybe one day science will discover something small. Little disclaimer there. Okay, next. Okay, so this has been a bit long. We had 40 minutes. So in the next video, I'm going to say, and we're going to discuss human brain storage capacity may not be possible in classical mechanics. All right, I could do this tomorrow, but I'm going to record the next video, even though I'm getting a bit tired. I want to get this done by tonight. Anyways, cheers, guys. Hope you have a great day or evening, wherever the heck you are. And I will see you in the next video.